In the Age of Calamity demo, we got to play some missions which allowed us to explore May Village to see what it had looked like before it was destroyed 100 years later in Breath of the Wild. To many, it was exciting to consider the game would let us explore other ruins, but it turns out, no. No, you don't get to see Kabanga Village, Tabantha Village, or any other significant village. Maybe if I push into the boundary limits, I can get a glimpse of what the other villages look like. No. It's still in ruins. It's still in ruins. Tabantha Village and the Merida Exchange are still in ruins, and Kabanga is blocked by a hill, which wasn't there in Breath of the Wild. Without access to these places, I don't think I'd have enough information to recreate the Tabantha Bake accurately. However, perhaps we can snoop around in Breath of the Wild while respecting the ruins to make sure nothing's broken as we dig around. No, I guess there isn't any information, but hey look, there's this spot, which is where they grew Tabantha wheat, and they used that for Tabantha Bake? I got pretty desperate. I spent hours upon hours scrubbing through both games to find any information on the ruined villages. I have the Sheikah Slate out to capture any paranormal activities. The family that lived here were brutally murdered by bokoblins. Let's see if we can make contact. The device in my hand should detect any spikes in electromagnetic energy.
Get the fuck down.
My readings are showing bad vibes in here. While I did find some cool details, nothing really significant stood out. With no strong leads, I looked at the other dishes in Age of Calamity. That's when I noticed between both games, there are only 4 unique dishes, 3 of which are from settlements that were destroyed in Breath of the Wild's timeline. It almost seems intentional that the new dishes are from lost villages, and this realization had me convinced that this was an intentional design choice. We'll talk about the 4th dish later, but I believe the reason these 3 dishes only exist in Age of Calamity is because their recipes and the respective cultures were lost after each of these villages' peoples were killed. To understand how this lore falls into place, we need to first talk about the stables. After Calamity Ganon returned, much had been destroyed. Monsters seized towns and roads, disrupting travel and communication.
Really not gonna help?
It isn't obvious when some stables were first constructed, but some of them were established after the Calamity, as made evident here at the non-existent Dueling Peak stable. The stables that can be found along the roads form a network that connects all of Hyrule, and they exist to support adventurers and tourists across Hyrule, which makes sense. The stables were created out of necessity because their kingdom fell, and without proper guards or knights, travel would be too dangerous, which effectively made villages feel isolated. Stables popped up across Hyrule with essential workers who are there to provide information about dangerous lands, nearby quests, treasures, or, interestingly enough, recipes. Large recipe posters can be found in 13 of the 15 stables, and mechanically speaking, they're designed to communicate basic dishes to the player, but consider how this reads into the story. Why would they make it a priority to inform every visitor on cooking? In Age of Calamity, after having completed enough service quests, the player is asked to help organize the Merida Exchange. Merchants from all over Hyrule are gathering to meet, some of them for the first time, and to exchange information. And after its completion, the quest is updated to read, "Merchants exchange vital trade information, and Hyrule will truly benefit from it." The reason this event is so significant is because the Merida Exchange was the locus of trade between central Hyrule and the frontier area of Tabantha. So think of it like Hyrule creating their own Wall Street. Merchants got together to exchange information, and sure, that would mean establishing prices for common items, but to negotiate prices, I imagine a discussion of ingredients and their uses, in other words, recipes, would need to be had. And if people from all over Hyrule came to this meeting, it would become clear which settlements were destroyed. No one from Tabantha Village, Mabe Village, or Dea Village would show up, at least not in the Breath of the Wild timeline. Their cultures were lost to guardian and monster attacks. No one would ever eat Dea's hot pot again, and the people would forget about the Mabe souffle. I think that's why the lore surrounding these dishes specifically talk about their traditions. I would like to believe the merchants, in collaboration with the stables, made a conscious effort in preserving cultural recipes. They don't want any more local cultures to be lost to possible future attacks. We do see some evidence of lost recipes in Breath of the Wild. Goddard at the Riverside stable tasks Link with learning what the royal family used to eat, and if that kind of information was lost, it only gives reason to believe that recipes from the ruined villages were also lost. The champion's inauguration was celebrated with a ceremonial platter, which is the fourth unique dish in Age of Calamity. However, even though the ceremony was held very recently, this legendary dish was lost after a battle with the Calamity. You have to learn all of the recipes to resurrect the forgotten dish. Like, what the hell? How did the cooks lose the recipes already? Oh no, were they killed? Perhaps this recipe isn't available in Breath of the Wild because the champions and Link were defeated and there was no one to recover the forgotten legendary dish. There were only 4 unique dishes to Age of Calamity. They don't exist in the Breath of the Wild timeline because no one was there to pass on the traditions. Knowing that gives me a lot more respect for these characters.